Okay, we will get started on the webinar. This is the Cambium PMP 450, What You Need to Know. And I'm going to introduce Garrett Kellner from CTIconnect. And Garrett, if you can start your introduction.
Yes, hello, welcome thank you for joining. This is Garrett Kellner, Managing Director of Operations for CTIconnect. A quick little background of CTIconnect. We've been servicing the telemarket industry for the past 25 years, also including utilities, government, and enterprise, mainly focused in North America and CALA. We offer world-class engineering, network design, and superior supply chain services, offering a total system solution with a personal and expert touch. We do offer our in-house Apex 9 brand, and we are part of the Convergence families of companies. So we are one of four. Mitotech is another subsidiary of Convergence. They offer IT network and infrastructure services. IP Pay is another. They are offering payment processing, gateway, and billing services. And the last one is Cnut Capital, offering leasing, financial services, and loans. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Matt Mangriotis with Cambium Networks.
Hello. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I lost the slideshow mode already. Hang on a second. How's everyone doing today? I am doing this remotely, so bear with me if there's any noise. But welcome. Thanks for joining. Again, my name is Matt Mangriotis with Cambium Networks. I'm the Director of Product Management for the 450 and CN Ranger product lines. We'll talk about the 450 product line today, and I'll cover most of the new stuff that comes along with that platform. I see a lot of familiar names on the attendee list. I am going to go through a little bit of the Cambium, kind of the basics for those that may not be as familiar. And then we'll get into some more details about the platform itself, where it's headed, all the cool new things that are coming. And we'll take questions for sure on all that stuff. So if you have questions, please start typing them into the question box and we'll get to them. And if I can answer them in line while we're presenting, I will. Otherwise, we might wait till the end and I'll try to answer all the questions we get at the end of the presentation. So real quick, Cambium at a glance. Started in 2011. We started much longer before that with Motorola as part of Motorola, but we spun out on our own in 2011. And we just went public last year. So you can track the stock now at CMBM on NASDAQ. Pretty exciting times for us here. The earnings call was actually yesterday or Monday. And it's pretty neat stuff going on in the company right now. So we're excited about everything. It's really about we're focused on wireless connectivity, from anything from very close range Wi-Fi connecting clients to very long range with point-to-point links that go quite a bit of distance. We're headquartered outside of Chicago. That's where I'm based, but you might find me in various locations around the world as I do a fair amount of travel to visit customers as well as distributors and things like that. And I attend a lot of the trade shows, so come say hi at the next trade show, which for me will be WISP America. We have 700 employees across 6 continents, and we've shipped a ton of nodes, and we're really feel like we're at the cutting edge of a lot of the new technology that's out there. So as you might imagine, I went through some of the history. I'm going to go pretty quickly through this to get to the good stuff. Again, we like to think of our portfolio as a wireless fabric. And by that, we mean that we can take everyone through the long distance microwave links. We have a lot of exciting new stuff happening in that area of the portfolio as well. We have a PTP 820 product that's a top end point-to-point microwave product, and we're adding to that portfolio recently with the 850 product line, which is the higher performance version of that. So that continues to be a leading guy. Then we get to the access layer network, where we do the traditional point-to-multipoint type of distribution network, going from a tower site to multiple locations. We also support industrial applications like oil and gas, wastewater management, offshore oil and gas, all kinds of different industrial applications. We also have another product in the portfolio called CN Reach, which does this very well with SCADA and serial interface for those needs as well. Moving to the edge, we do the point-to-multipoint networks and then also provide the Wi-Fi for enterprises, schools, hospitals, all the other verticals that are out there that need multi-dwelling type of or multi-user type of Wi-Fi, and we can connect all of that. The great thing about this wireless fabric is that it's all managed by the same management platform called CN Maestro, which is a very powerful tool, and it keeps getting better. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and how it interfaces with new things like CBRS, which we're very excited to talk about today as well. And of course, the global support that's provided by Cambium is top notch. Again, 450 as a platform is our leading flagship style point-to-multipoint platform, providing above a gig per sector where we can. It's really about capacity and spectral efficiency. It's a software-defined radio, which is a little bit unlike a lot of the other products in this space, in that it's built from the ground up for this purpose, a fixed wireless broadband product, and it's proprietary protocol, which means it's not LTE, it's not 802.11, it's its own thing. We used to call it the canopy MAC layer. And the claim to fame for a long time has been that it utilizes GPS synchronization in order to be able to reuse frequencies. We can do this in a kind of a back-to-back fashion, doing two frequencies in back-to-back, meaning an A-B type scenario to cover the full 360-degree outlay. We continually evolve the platform, and you can see I've got some slides with some old kind of graphics on here. But our typical application for this product line is a residential access or residential broadband. And what that means is we have a tower site or a base station site that has access points. And those could be 450, 450i, 450 Medusa, 450M. And you can put as many of them as you have spectrum to utilize at that tower site. They can be controlled by a cluster management module or not. We can provide timing in other ways as well. And those simply connect to a subscriber module on the customer residence, providing that broadband connection. We can tie all that together with the indoor router, the R-series CN Pilot devices as well. And then again, management through all that other stuff, through the CN Maestro product. Another popular application is video surveillance with the point-to-multipoint product platform. The 450i is very well suited for this because it has a PoE output port that can control and power cameras on the subscriber module itself. So very elegant method of providing video surveillance as well. We'll talk about a couple of features that we're adding to make that even better in the future. Carrier Wi-Fi, we can provide that backhaul for the Wi-Fi. That's another very typical add-on type of application that a lot of folks in the service provider industry are utilizing at this time, meaning for enterprise or local campuses, you can tie all that together and then backhaul using the 450. So the 450 has gone through tons of evolution over the years. We launched this thing first in 2013 with the guy on the left there, with connectorized radio that connects to a sector antenna. We then integrated that antenna. We actually released a better antenna, Cambium designed and built antenna. And now with the 450 Medusa product, which is the bigger guy on the right, we can provide the highest spectral efficiency and capacity by utilizing an antenna array that's enclosed in there. That is a 14 by 14 antenna array, providing the highest level of capacity. There's a lot of options on the subscriber side. Most of you folks are probably familiar with a lot of these. Many of these are going away and are being replaced by the 450B, which we'll talk more about in just a minute. But the 450i guys are still available where the ruggedized or IP67 type of devices are required. I mentioned synchronization before, but it behooves me to talk a little bit more about that, in that this eliminates self-interference when clusters or radios are trying to talk over one another. And when everything in your network is synchronized, you can make more effective use of available spectrum. And all this means is that it's timing on a GPS pulse that's a 1 pulse per second, and all the APs talk at the same time, then they all turn around and listen at the same time, eliminating or minimizing that self-interference. Very useful add-on to the platform. Again, we evolve over time. This is a software-defined radio, which allows us to keep making improvements via software. We do introduce new hardware periodically, but the advancements we can make in software are really great because all it takes is an over-the-air upgrade of software to realize these new features, new performance, all kinds of great stuff that comes along with the platform. Medusa. So for those that are not familiar, CN Medusa was launched about 3 years ago now, and what it brings to the table is now the ability to provide more than 3 times the capacity versus the previous generation of product. And we're seeing 3 and 4 times the capacity in the similar sectors. And that's really due to what we call massive multi-user MIMO. That is the ability to talk to more than one subscriber in the same time slot. We're able to achieve 400 megs in a 20 meg channel, even over a gigabit in a 40 meg channel in the lab. In reality, it depends on where the subscribers are located because it's relying on spatial diversity in order to make those simultaneous connections to multiple SMs. But it's a great product and a great tool, and a lot of the folks on the call today can attest to that because I know some of them are using it already. So it's out there in lots and lots of networks. There's thousands of them using this and enhancing the network capacity all over the world. The U.S. is our largest market, but we do have certainly deployments all over the world. There is a solution paper that talks about all the features that 450 Medusa brings to the table. It's not super technical. It tries to explain these things in terms that everyone can understand. I wrote it, so if I can understand it, then anyone on the call certainly can understand it. It's a good resource for understanding all these great features and the benefits that it brings. So the part that most of you probably are waiting for is the roadmap. Now's the time to take and capture screenshots if you want. Again, this is a plan of intent, subject to change. It's nothing that we can be held accountable for. Necessarily, the dark blue guys are guys that we have pretty firm commitments on. And if you look at the legend, as we get a little further out in the future, things are less solid and features within those releases may move around. I am not going to go through all the features on this table. I can certainly talk to you guys about it at a later date and things like that. But I do want to point out a few things. Number one, the 3 gig 450B is coming out very shortly. We are ramping up volumes to get distributors their initial stocking orders very soon. We expect that to happen within a couple of weeks. So 450B 3 gigahertz is on its way. It has been approved for Part 96 use already. I want to make sure I point that out. We can talk more about that also in a little bit. But it's already been approved for both Part 90 and Part 96. You can look at the FCC website for that. After that, in terms of hardware, we got the MicroPop on its way. It'll be out and shipping in April. It says March on the chart here, but we're not going to quite make March. It'll be April. So that's on its way as well. We're excited about that. I'll share a slide and we'll talk more details about that in just a minute. In between there, we have a software release that is in beta right now, but we'll go full release at the end of February or early March, around that week, which brings CBRS to the table in terms of a full release. So if you want to try CBRS today, you can using the beta version of 16.2, but we'll bring, sorry, I mean the advanced slide there. We'll bring the full release version at the end of the month here. It also brings auto contention slots to the Medusa product, as well as 4.9 gigahertz support on Medusa, which we had to pull back a little bit from the last release. But it's fixed and it's working now in 16.2. The next big software release in April adds a couple of cool things to the table. One thing I want to point out, well, two things I want to point out here. Intermediate modulation modes. It'll smooth out that waterfall curve, so those folks that are kind of a certain distance away that are in between modulation modes, there's a big drop between, let's say, 8x operation and 6x operation, and especially 6 and 4 in terms of throughput. Now we'll have 7x and 5x to kind of shore up those guys that are kind of on the edge of the higher or lower modulations. So it's going to smooth out that waterfall curve, which we're excited to get. It shows kind of an overall, about a 10% increase in overall sector performance when you have some, we've modeled it out on evenly distributed customers. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out is the increase in PPS. With the original 450 subscriber modules, we were kind of limited in terms of processing power on those guys. So we couldn't really have much more than about 55 or 60 megs of throughput because you're kind of limited by the packet per second processing power. Now with this advancement, we've more than quadrupled that already on the platform with 450i and 450b, but now we're further improving that so we can deliver lots of bandwidth efficiently to all of the products. That's exciting as well. And those are the big things I wanted to point out. If anyone has specific questions, they see something on the chart they want to talk about, let us know in the questions and we'll try and get to those as well. So 450B, we've been shipping for a long time. That's kind of the de facto standard of the 450 platform subscribers these days. We have a high gain version or a mid gain version. We will have that connectorized version if you saw that on the chart later in the year, towards June. But this is a great product and we're getting pretty good results from everyone using this today. 3 gig, as I mentioned, is out. It was targeted for January. It's happening in February, but it's on its way. Very, very similar to the 5 gig in most ways. MicroPop. I do want to spend a minute here. MicroPop is intended as a kind of a network filler, if you will, for those sites that may be hard to reach with your high site, or you have a neighborhood off to the side that needs kind of up to 20. So the limitations on this guy is up to 20 subscribers connected at once in the sector. It comes in both an omni or a sector form factor. GPS is on board. It's limited to 2 miles range. And so the big thing here is that for those areas where what maybe wasn't financially feasible to put out a full-blown 450 access point because it's the cost, now you have an option that's a $1,000 list price. So you can probably pick it up for 800 pretty easily. And it's a reasonable cost model to achieve the connection to those last 6 or 10 or 15 customers that maybe were hard to reach or require a second access point. And the form factors are great in that you can actually put that on a customer premise or a small pole next to the drive in the local neighborhood, and people won't complain. It's a great form factor. I'll be showing these at WISP America as well, so you'll have an idea of what they look like in real life. So 450B connectorized, chatted about that a bit. I do want to point out that this we're offering as a MicroPop connectorized AP, as well as a 450B SM or PTP connectorized. The only difference there between the two is 30 volt versus 48 volt PoE. The SM will have the 30 volt guy, and the AP will have the PoE 8023 AT compatibility, or 48 volt. The form factor is such that it fits into the RF Elements twist port adapter, if that is of interest. So you can use the feed horns that they provide. Very similar at the top to the EPMP product. So it's an RP SMA type connectors for the antenna. I don't want to forget about CN Archer. I know not a lot of folks take advantage of this installation tool, but it's a good installation tool and keeps getting better. We're adding more features to it. A new release was just out I think this month, 1.3, that added a couple of extra features in there. It's a nice tool to eliminate the need to have the audio jack into the SM, but it is really useful, and it's becoming more useful as we get further down the road. that was all on those products. Let's talk about 3 gig for a minute. Let me pause here and pull up the question. Question about beamforming. Is it part of 450 PMP? So when we talk about the 450 platform, the 450 platform, all of the products within the 450 platform interoperate with all of the other products. We have beamforming specifically on the 450 Medusa product, which is the access point or base station. That's the bigger guy, and he does beamforming and multi-user MIMO. The subscribers do not. The subscribers are receiving from the access. There's a question about how fast can Medusa talk to a single CPE in 20 megahertz channel. We can push the entire throughput of the sector through a single SM. We call them SMs. CPE is kind of an industry term. Same thing. We can push the entire capacity, meaning up to about 300 megs to a single SM if you want. When we do multi-user MIMO, we can talk to more than one subscriber at once, and therefore we can push 300 to each of the subscribers. A subscriber can't really do more than that because you're limited by your channel bandwidth there. I'll answer some of the other questions a little bit later. But CN Archer is available for ePMP as well. That was a question on there. It is available now for CN Archer. That's an oversight in me not updating that slide. Let's talk CBRS for a minute. A question, real quick, I'll address one more question that I just got. Will the 450B products, the mid and high gain and SMs, will they be able to connect to the MicroPop APs? Absolutely, yes. The intent here is that the MicroPops are part of the 450 platform, and they will connect to any subscriber that's out there. So yes, absolutely, that's the case. All right, CBRS. I hope folks are familiar with it, or at least have heard of this thing coming. It's changing the landscape of the 365 band. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time covering it, but just suffice to say, we're getting more spectrum to use. As operators, you can have more spectrum to use, but it comes at a bit of a cost in that you have to talk now to a spectrum access system, which is helping manage and kind of coordinate that spectrum to limit interference. It's going to be broken into 3 tiers of use: GAA, those with priority licenses, and the incumbents. Most folks are going to be doing GAA, and everyone who's using the band that's not an incumbent will be doing GAA until those PALs are auctioned, which is coming up, and the FCC just released rules this week. They had released a proposal a while back, but now just this week, yesterday, they announced the rules again and released them as a proposal for rules, official rules rather. And so you can have a read on that. The FCC's website is pretty well organized there, and so you can learn a lot more about that, the PAL auction that's upcoming. The plan is to do that at the end of June 25th. So if you're planning to bid, I suggest you find that lawyer that can help you and get moving on that pretty quickly here. Again, the band in question is 365. It's 355 to 37 now, and they're calling that band 48 for LTE. So our enablement here in the 450 platform spectrum is working with all of the big 3 SASs. Right now, we are working with Federated and Google. We will bring CommScope on in the future, but we're not quite ready for them at this time, and that's kind of just a resource constraint. We know we can, we just can't add them to the fold just yet. But we are definitely committed to doing so. So if you really need CommScope, be patient, and we'll get them in as soon as we can. But Federated and Google are your choices now. And the way that this works, to kind of put it at a high level, is that our 3 gig equipment will talk through CN Maestro, and CN Maestro actually has a component called the domain proxy, and that proxies the transmission of these messaging to and back and forth to the SAS. And so that's how it must work. Our architecture is such that you need that AP and SM to connect to Maestro, and then through the domain proxy to the SAS. So we are available in beta now. There's a website, and I'll share that with you in just a bit, where you can go and kind of learn all about how to do that. And it's active. We have lots and lots of customers that are trying it out. We're gonna, once we go full commercial, we'll have most of those guys converting their entire network from Part 90 to Part 96. We have a really great way to do this that minimizes downtime. And that's kind of something that we've been working on for a while. So you might see a lot of hype around CBRS, and a lot of what's coming out of industry is CBRS equals LTE, and that is really not the case. LTE has its advantages, and certainly the range and coverage is one of the big things that was touted when LTE first came out in the band. But as we have seen time and time again, when we go into a network and they kind of compare us to what the LTE products are doing, the difference really isn't that great, especially when you have Medusa in the mix. Medusa allows higher power, and it allows, so it erases any power difference that you might see. It also allows us to maintain a little bit better connection, in that the beamforming capabilities really help with the range and coverage issues, even near and non-line of sight conditions. So if you're comparing Medusa to LTE, we're eliminating the one big deficit we've seen between the products, and you're gaining the benefits of the enhanced capacity, enhanced spectral efficiency, the total subscriber bandwidth, especially in the uplink. A lot of folks may notice that with LTE equipment, uplink is severely constrained because it was designed as a mobile service to provide more downlink bandwidth than up. And so that's a constraint of the protocol itself, and it's something that's hard to overcome. So have a look at this white paper that's on our website as well, to kind of understand the differences between the 450 platform and any LTE stuff that's out there. And the microsite we just launched is called the CBRS microsite, if you will. It has a nice FAQ document that kind of goes through a bunch of frequently asked questions. There's links to the community, and there's a how do we get started with CBRS page as well that kind of goes through a lot of different steps you might want to take in order to get started with CBRS, with Cambium. And of course, again, another plug for the community. I'm on there all the time. I'll answer questions. I'm going to post a link to this webinar on there, and you can come and ask questions of our community at any point in time. We'll be happy to answer them. I think that's about all I had. I know I went super quickly, and so I'll start looking at questions now. And if Garrett or anybody wants to fire off some questions too, feel free to pipe up and do that. Let me see. So a couple of questions. Will MicroPop be available in CBRS? Not at this time. The MicroPop devices that I talk about are 5 gigahertz only. We don't have plans yet to do a 3 gigahertz MicroPop. However, that said, we do have several options for access points or base stations in the 3 gigahertz band. We have the Medusa, which is our top line flagship guy. We have the 450i, both integrated and connectorized, and we have what we call a light version of those, which basically is the same hardware but limited to 20 subscribers. So it's not a MicroPop as such. It's not any different in terms of hardware, but it is a little bit lower cost, and you can talk to CTI about cost. But it's lower cost, but it's what we call the light version. So there's 3 different options, 5 different options if you count connectorized and integrated. Question about CN Maestro on premises. So a lot of folks, there's 2 options for CN Maestro, the management software. One is in the cloud, where everything goes straight to the cloud. The management of your network is done in the cloud. And that we have available for beta trials now. The on-premises version, where you, as the operator, have a server in your local network controlling or running CN Maestro. The on-premises version for CBRS will be available in the next couple of weeks. Actually, probably, we're hoping to try and get that out the door this Friday. It might be early next week, though, before it actually gets posted. So that's coming very, very shortly. And that would be, again, a beta until we get 16.2 official out the door as well. but it's on its way. So stay tuned for that. There's a question about how do you align the SMs to the APs? Well, CNArcher can help with that. So typically what customers do, and this is, this may be a little bit basic for some of the guys that have used this equipment for a long time, but there's a number of options to help you with that alignment of the subscriber to the base station. We have an audio tone, so there's a little jack that you can plug into on the radio itself that will provide an audio tone that changes as you get higher signal levels. You can hook up a computer, of course, to it while you're aligning on the roof, which is a little bit cumbersome, which is why we came up with this app where you can actually connect to the radio using a dongle that will provide the battery power as well as a SSID that you can connect to with your phone, and you can actually see the signal levels through CNArcher. And so you align it by peaking the signal, if you will, receive level signal in both the azimuth and the elevation. And that's how you kind of get the best signal for your aligning your subscriber. There's installation instructions and kind of methods all over the forum and in the user guides that are available for you to look at. Let's see. Okay, answered some of this.
Matt, I'm not sure if this, there's a couple more that you might have missed on here. It says, what will happen to the GAA users who occupy spectrum that could ultimately be auctioned off to the PAL users?
Yeah, so if you're using GAA and a PAL comes in, the PAL has priority to use a certain amount of spectrum. It may or may not be the frequency that you're on. It may or may not be in the area that you're in, but there is certainly options to overcome that, if you will. The 3 gig is going to be a learning for everybody. Just to kind of level set the rules, the PALs will, where they are auctioned, in specific counties that they're auctioned, it's up to 7 channels, 7 10 megahertz channels as a maximum, meaning that there will be 8 other channels available always for GAA. At the beginning here, it'll be all 15 channels that will be available. A channel is a 10 megahertz chunk, but you can utilize more than one channel at any given time. You can ask for more spectrum to be allocated to you. So if you're using GAA and that all of the spectrum is full and someone does own a PAL and they want to use it, they will have priority and you will be removed from that channel or relocated depending on if there's other spectrum available.
Okay, there is another
power to come down. Go ahead.
Okay, there was another question. Is CNUT no longer available? And does the CN Maestro really cut it? Does it do all that's needed? And how does the CBRS SAS integrate with both of these management tools?
Oh, okay. The first question was about Cnut. Cnut as a tool is still around. It's still useful for software upgrading the radios. It will continue to be supported, but for the use of CBRS, you must use CN Maestro, at least to do the CBRS portion of it. The domain proxy is integrated into CBRS, into CN Maestro, and so it must be used. Now, Maestro is always becoming better as well. There was a recent release that added more APIs to the platform, and it's always getting more powerful. Software upgrades can be done through CN Maestro. They can be scheduled now. There's more support for email alerts, all kinds of stuff. CN Maestro keeps getting better. It's a great, great tool. And it's really the glue that holds all of these different products together. I would like to keep answering a couple of the questions that are listed here as well. A further question about the domain proxy. Cambium's domain proxy is part of Maestro and was managed and developed by Cambium. So it's not an outside anything, it's part of CN Maestro. Question about, do we know if companies like Verizon and AT&T are going to buy up the PALs in all the locations that are out there? I suspect that they are not. However, there are some entities that may look at it as an investment. There are possibilities to sublease these things. So one of the rules is that no single entity can own more than 4 PALs in a given county. However, you can sublease them, so someone can buy them on speculation and think that they could get money from someone to give them, you know, the access to that spectrum. So I don't know. I have no idea if Verizon and AT&T are going to go nationwide and buy up all these things. One good thing that did happen is they eliminated the grouping or the CMA grouping of bidding, meaning there's no longer bidding on multiple counties at once. Each county is going to be bid on separately. So that's a good thing for the list, I think. I mentioned the answer to 450 Lite. So there is a 450i Lite version, AP, a 2x2 Lite, that is available in 3 gig as well as 5 gig if necessary. 5 gig, I think, will largely be supplanted by the MicroPop when that comes up. 450B in 3 gig will be launched very shortly. Distributors will start getting them at the end of next week, if not the beginning of the following. So question from someone is about 3 gig Medusa. Can we operate in 2 10 megahertz channels not adjacent to each other? So good question. So one of the things that LTE does in the chipset and is pretty cool is what's known as carrier aggregation. They can take 2 separate pieces of spectrum and kind of combine them. Right now, the 450 platform does not do this. It can operate in 10, 15, 20, you know, any number of channel sizes, 10, 20, 30, or 40, but currently not in non-adjacent channels. So there's a number of different options to accommodate for this. And in CBRS, you can ask for more than 1 channel, and you will be granted more than 1 channel contiguous until those channels are gone. So I know the PALs are 10 megahertz chunks. Depending on how your network is planned, you may want to think about bidding on more than 1 PAL to take advantage of that, and have PALs, if you have more than 1, will always be allocated adjacent to each other. Meaning if I bid on 2, then I will always have a 20 megahertz chunk to use. So that's a good thing to think about as well. Let's see. Yep, CN Archer, there is a version available for iOS, and you can find it in the Apple Store. I think I answered that one. Good question about other spectrum. So there's talk, and Commissioner Pai, you know, made comments in public I don't know, a few months ago about 5.9, specifically 5850 to 5895, and he said, hey, you know, this was originally for DSC, and they're not using it, and you know, why not open this up for other Wi-Fi? And he proposed that he has similar rules to 5.8, and I hope that they're going to vote on this pretty soon and open up some additional spectrum at the top end of the 5.8 band. The great news is Cambium 450 platform supports this frequency right now. So all we need to do is have a software update that opens it up. We would not plan to charge for that, I don't think. I'm pretty sure we will not plan to charge for that. And we would just open it up with a software release. So at the bottom line, platform supports it. We're ready to go with that as soon as the FCC says go. So we'll keep our ears out for that when we think that's going to happen as well. There's a question about someone who has a 365 license through 2025. I'm not aware of a whole lot of licenses that are able to operate. So there's a couple of points I want to make here on CBRS. Most Part 90 licenses are going to expire April 17, 2020. About 80% of all of them that are out there, which means there's a fair amount, 20% of them, that are probably going to live on past that time frame. The CBRS SAS does not really know who's using spectrum if they're not on the SAS, meaning that there may be some interference type of issues beyond that date when people are operating under Part 90 still, but there's Part 96 folks in the area. So that if I was looking at this from an operator standpoint, even if my license expires later than 2020, than April 2020, I would consider getting ready for CBRS and moving my network to Part 96 to be in compliance or on the SAS, such that I can coordinate my spectrum and minimize interference across the network. It's something to consider. Yes, you can continue to operate under Part 90, but there are certainly some advantages to being part of the CBRS spectrum. So just something to think about. The question about the dongle that you might use with CN Archer. Today, Cambium does not have their own dongle. We've thought about trying to build one. We have not gotten a whole lot of traction internally to do that. Right now, we recommend LinkTex makes one. I don't know who sells them, and maybe Garrett can pipe up if you guys resell one. I'm not sure. But there are a few out there, but LinkTex is the one we've tested and like for use with CN Archer, certainly. Let's see. Okay, a good question about the heartbeat message for CBRS. So CBRS, the way that it works is that every device in our 450 system is what they call a CBSD Category B. CBRS device, CBSD. Category B means it's outdoor and it's high power. And so all of the devices, APs and SMs, are required to tell the SAS that they're still online and still transmitting. This must occur within 5 minutes. So we heartbeat every minute or so back to the SAS. And that is done through the AP itself actually generates those messages. So the SM communicates to the AP, and that's the extent of where the SM CBRS messaging is going. The AP then connects to Maestro and the domain proxy and transmits those messages back up to the SAS. And then the heartbeat acknowledgement comes back from the SAS through the proxy to the AP. And that happens every minute and a half or so. And then, so there's ample opportunity to make sure that we're well within that 5 minute period. So if that acknowledgement doesn't come back for 5 minutes, the radio will stop transmitting. That's part of what it is. Part of the rules around using CBRS. Question about power levels, Part 96 versus Part 90. So yes, the power levels allowed are higher in CBRS versus Part 90. So in Part 90, it was 25 megahertz per 25 watts per 25 megahertz, which adds up to about 43 dBm in a 10 meg channel. And in Part 96, we're actually now able to do 47 in a 10 meg channel. So that is a significant increase in power. And the Medusa product can take full advantage of that. So the Medusa product can certainly get to the maximum power levels allowed in Part 96, which is great news. So question about the CN Maestro. Can you use either cloud or on-premise version of CN Maestro for CBRS? The answer is yes. You can use either one. A lot of folks I know have on-premises, but you certainly can use the cloud version of Maestro as well. Absolutely. Question about N=1 reuse. So LTE, another thing that they claim is sometimes the products can do what they call N=1, or the same frequency in all directions to do 360-degree coverage. And right now, the Medusa product, or any of the 450 platform product, can do n equals 2, which is AB type scenarios in 90-degree sectors. We cannot do n equals 1, and there are no plans to make that work. There is some caveats with doing that with LTE. You lose efficiency. So it's not a true 100% efficiency when you talk about doing n equals 1. You do lose coverage, you lose range, and you lose modulation because there's interference between the sectors. So there is certainly a compromise if you choose to do n equals 1. In fact, I've never heard of it being done in a 4-sector configuration. Typically, that's a 3-sector configuration where you're doing n equals 1 among 3 sectors to get 360-degree coverage. And the efficiency in many instances is not great. Question about utilities using CBRS. Yes, we see a fair amount of utilities that are interested in the spectrum, as well as other verticals. So there's a number of different use cases that CBRS is, that find CBRS interesting. So certainly we have oil and gas customers and utility customers, electric co-ops, all kinds of people looking into utilizing CBRS as well, not just for SCADA, but for broadband applications as well. So yeah, certainly all kinds of different things. There's a question about CPI training. So CPI, I didn't really mention that too much, but for CBRS in general has another requirement which is known as CPI, which is Certified Professional Installer. Every device that goes up in the air that's going to utilize Part 96 requires it to be professionally installed by a certified professional installer. There is training for this, and you must get certified because there's a digital certificate that goes along with your name, and you're signing off on every device that gets installed. And this means that the information that you're putting in for these devices is accurate, and your name is on it. So if there's any infringement or any problems with it, the FCC knows where to go and who to contact to resolve that. So certainly there's a requirement for CPI for installation for any CBRS device, and training can be found through all the major SaaS providers. We don't recommend one versus another. We certainly have used all three that I mentioned before, Google, Federated, and CommScope. We've been through their training. They're all roughly the same. But yeah, feel free to go check those out. We have links to all that on our CBRS page as well. There's a question about CN Maestro and CN Maestro Pro. So CN Maestro today is free. You can do this with any Cambium equipment and download CN Maestro or use it in the cloud, and it's all free. It stores a week's worth of data as history. We are going to launch what we call CN Maestro Pro, which will add a significant amount of new features as well as longer history. That is one of the things that you get with CN Maestro Pro, and that will be a paid service. That's not out yet, but it's coming this year, probably in Q2. So stay tuned for more information about that. I'm sure there'll be other webinars specifically about CN Maestro Pro and all the great new features that it'll bring to the table. But certainly one of the things is longer historical data. I think that's all the ones I see as far as questions go.
I think there might be one more that I'm not sure if you covered this, but can you explain what auto contention slots are?
Oh, sure. So in our system, the 450 system is a deterministic system, meaning it's not polling the SMs that are connected to the AP every frame. Rather, the SMs themselves ask for data to be transferred. They do what's called a bandwidth request in the at the end of each frame. So if they need data to be transferred at the end of the frame, they'll go and ask for the data to be transferred, and that will be set up in the next frame. Now, in order to allow the SMs to have this space in the frame, we have what's called contention slots that are set aside as part of the frame. If you allocate more contention slots than are needed, you're effectively wasting space that could be occupied by user data. And so in the past, we've had that as a manual setting in the radio system, meaning you set a discrete number of contention slots aside. And the optimal number really varies on how many subscribers you have and what the traffic patterns look like and all kinds of different parameters. So now what we have is the radio itself will optimize that automatically by allocating only what it needs, but making sure that it's leaving space for those bandwidth requests to get through. So it's an automatic setting now. You don't need to worry about setting aside a specific number of contention slots. So great, I think it's a great improvement to the system overall. And for those that have been using the equipment for a long time, it's kind of one less thing you have to think about. All right, any other questions? I think we covered a lot of ground today. And again, you guys can always reach me at matt@cambiumnetworks.com or see the forum at Cambium Networks, or ask your rep at CTI. They have a wealth of knowledge as well.
Okay, I think we might have answered all the questions. Do you see any more that you have not answered out there, Matt?
Say that one more time, sorry.
Did you see any other questions out there that we did not answer? Did you answer the one about when the antenna components will start shipping?
I didn't. Thanks for that one, Bill. We're expecting to see that shift happen probably beginning of Q2. We will be selling out the 4-packs of complete units, meaning radios and antennas. We have to sell those out before we make that shift. And so that depends on how quickly they sell through. But I think it's going to happen in Q2, it looks like, based on existing inventory levels. Great.
Okay, if anyone has any other questions, you can contact Matt from Cambium, or you can contact your CTIconnect representative, or Garrett. And I think that we've concluded the end of this webinar. We look forward to having you on the next webinar coming up here in another week or two.
And thanks again for inviting me to speak today.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you very much, Matt. Very informative and helpful.
Okay, this concludes our webinar. Thank you, everyone.